Welcome, everybody. This is the Brick to Brick podcast. I am your host, Bryan, aka Mailbox Money Karp, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, aka the Professor, Anthony Loffredo.
How you doing, bud?
I'm fantastic. First off, I got to compliment you on that swag.
Oh, thank you.
That is really, that's some good stuff. The Grove at Dyersburg, 51 units, and then you guys will find out what the back says another time. So, Ant, we all have our real estate journeys and stories, but talk to me why you got into real estate, how you got into real estate, and how you left that cushy W-2 job.
So I started off I graduated Hofstra in 2008, and I went into accounting. So I became a CPA. I started auditing hedge funds and private equity funds for big national accounting firms. And some of our clients that we were doing the auditing for, they had private equity funds that their holdings were all in real estate. So here I am, I'm 23, 24 years old, and I'm in the city, and I'm sitting in a conference room where they small little conference room where they shove all the auditors into. And but we're an earshot away from the conference room of where all the owners and the higher ups of the funds. So all day I'm just listening to their meetings, and these guys are invested in multifamily, huge buildings all over the city. These guys had thousands of units, all within the boroughs. So I've had multiple conversations with them in and out with the audits and stuff, and I said, you know what, this is where I want to be, in that room. Yeah. I don't want to be in this room anymore. So so from there, I said, how do I get my foot in the door, right? How do I start doing real estate? Well, no connections, no nothing, right? Kind of just starting from the ground up. The first thing that I was able to do was, let me start flipping some houses. Let me get my foot into the door. I know the local market well on the island. So that's what I started to do. And I was still working full time as a CPA, but I picked up one house. I managed, after work, after a nice 12, 14-hour day in the city auditing, I managed to flip a house. So throughout that whole entire process.
You make that sound easy. So how did you find a deal? How did you fund a deal? I'm sure you didn't have money at that time.
No, not a lot of money. So what I did was, I did it almost like somebody with no education or no knowledge of how to do it would do it, right? So where do you find buy a house? You find it on MLS, right? Yep. The good news was, this was back in 2015.
Okay.
So there were deals. Not like today. There were deals on the MLS that you actually could purchase, that you were able to, with a little bit of meat on the bone, right? Yeah. So, well, the first house that we actually did this with was, let's take a step back, right? So we were in the city. We were starting to have our children. So the first house that we bought on the island was a foreclosed house.
Okay.
Right? So we purchased it with a 203B loan, which is a renovation loan.
Okay.
So now what we did was, we were living in the city, we had our house, and we were renovating it with this 203B loan. Okay? So once we finished the renovation, we went to the house. So how it worked is, the house was $198,000 in Ronkonkoma.
Can I get one of those?
It was a 3-1 ranch with a full basement and a 1-car garage.
I still own some of those.
It was $198,000.
I remember.
So we got a loan for $250,000. So the way that the 203B works is, you were able to get a renovation loan on top of the purchase price. Mm-hmm. So you had an extra $50,000 or so that the bank would give you for the renovation. So I managed the renovation, driving to and from Queens, at the end of my day, to manage the renovation. So once it was all done, we moved in. First thing I did, put an apartment in the basement.
Love it.
Right?
Love it.
Started to rent it out. I was getting $1,200 or $1,300. My mortgage was $2,000, maybe $21. So we were living in our first house for $800 a month.
Yeah.
So that was the real start.
Sounds like a house hack to me.
A house hack, yeah. So again, before the house hacking term became something, right?
But before I'm going to let you go, is how did you convince Angela to let you do this? Did she think you were crazy?
So
how do you get her to drink the Kool-Aid?
Yeah. So she knew I had an interest in real estate, and kind of just laying out. She's very good with numbers as well. So when you kind of just lay out the numbers on how it's going to work, it's really, well, we don't have enough money to put a big down payment down on the house. Yeah. So these are our options, right? So if we can find a way to create some value on top of it. Remember, we get to pick out all of our finishings, things like that, it helped move the needle a little bit too in that direction, right? You get to pick out whatever paint colors you want, you get to pick out your floors, whatever. So that was one way, right? And then just showing the sheer numbers here. This is what it's going to be, right? We're going to get it appraised a year later. We're going to knock out our PMI, right?
Yeah.
We're going to put the basement in. The basement's rent for this. So kind of just breaking down the numbers. That's kind of the only way I'm able to talk is in numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it's good that her love language involves numbers.
Exactly, yeah. So she's able to follow kind of everything that I was saying. So that's how I got her on board, and she was super supportive from day one with everything. So that made it an easy transition to go from
Queens to now Ronkonkoma.
600 square foot apartment in Queens to Ronkonkoma.
Okay, so take me from Ronkonkoma to now.
Okay, so now from Ronkonkoma forward, I was commuting back and forth on the train into the city, as was Angela. So that's when I was in those clients with the real estate, and it was all coming together. Like, I'm commuting 4 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in a room for 12 hours. I'm not doing anything that I want to do, right? I mean, accounting sucks. Let's be honest. It's horrible. So let me, I got to figure something out.
Yeah.
So I started to just dive in with whatever information was available. Podcasts had just started around that time. So there were some good real estate podcasts that I was listening to and kind of getting some other ideas from. But, the main thing was, hey, go on the market, look for a house. If it looks shitty, buy it, fix it, and flip it. Try it. So that's what I did.
Okay.
I was able to get my first purchase, which you're going to love this, was in Ronkonkoma. $157,000.
That's my buy box.
And it was a 3-1, and they actually had a full basement. It was one of those ones like in Ronkonkoma have the carports. They have like that.
Yeah, California. They're called California.
Yes, California
ranches.
Yes,
very well.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I bought one of those for $157,000. I did the renovation.
It's a $600,000 house today. Sorry, I can't help myself.
It's insane. No, I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I did the full renovation, which was around $70,000.
Now you're swinging the hammer, or you're hiring people?
So the good news is, I can't swing a hammer, right? I mean, I can, but it's nobody wants to see me. Don't stand near me if I'm swinging a hammer. So one of the good things is, and that I get that all the time, right? Oh, so did you go there? Did you do the work with? No, I can't.
Yeah.
Right?
It's actually a benefit.
It's a benefit.
It's like your superpower that you would hit your thumb or something.
Exactly. So I don't have that option to say, oh, I could cut costs on this because I could just do it at midnight.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to figure out to put the pieces in place of the people who could do it while making it make financial sense. So, that was one of the hurdles where it was kind of a good thing because I could never force myself in and kind of make the numbers work if I just went and did this myself. So we did the renovation. It was probably in the 80s, I would say. So we were into the house for, 240, 250 some odd thousand, and we sold it for 305. So it was the first entrance into it. And I said, all right, this is good. I make a little bit of money. I'm still working.
What was that first check?
Well, we sold it cash, which was nice for 305. But the profit ended up being around $30,000.
Right. And I'm sure, what were you making going into the city every day?
Oh, commuting, I was making 110 grand.
And you're like, holy cow.
W-2.
Yeah.
Fully taxed.
Right. You're like, holy cow.
Yeah. I said, okay, this is good. So then I continued on, kind of creating a business and taking it from there, had to start to figure out ways to get more deals faster. So the MLS has its deals, but it does not have a deal flow amount where the numbers are going to work, where you can create a whole business out of it.
I always say, if it's on the MLS, it's not a deal.
Exactly. And fast forward now, it's certainly not, right? So I had to create a marketing division in order to sell directly, to purchase houses directly from the sellers. So, I kind of just started to build the business out while I was working.
So you were still doing this while you were working?
Correct. Yes. Okay. I was sending out mailers. I was doing this stuff while I was working. The phone would ring. I'd run out of the office to try to pick it up, right? Try to set appointments for later at night.
I could see you in the bathrooms and on top of a toilet on the stall,
just hiding, trying to say, I'll buy your house.
Yeah. Cash, what's the echo in here? And you hear the toilet go whoosh.
So that was... So then what happened was a second deal, the third deal that I got while working ended up being a monster. It was a 6-figure profit, and we knew that's where it was going to be. So I said, let me take the leap now and go full time while we can. We'll have this pool of reserves here from this one deal. Yeah. Let's just take that leap and go all in. Good timing. I had 3 kids, 3 and under. My wife had just stopped working, and we had this cushion,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a big.
No,
in
that's
today's terms, it was not a big cushion.
I don't know if they could feel the sarcasm through the cameras.
Yeah. So, but it was enough to roll the dice, right? To bet on myself.
Mhm.
So, fast forward 9 years, and I've done over 200. I'm doing 30 to 40 flips a year, and now we're starting to take the capital and figuring out a way where to park it, where we're going to park it. So,
Talk to me about, I know, even though you may not be proud to announce this, you were buying and holding in Long Island. Talk to me about that. What went well, what went bad? Explain that to me, because I think that's important.
yeah, absolutely. So, I would say 5 years, 6 years ago, right? I started to after going full time for a couple of years. I was in that same boat. What am I going to do with the extra capital? All I want to do is buy real estate, right? I didn't get into this game to fix and flip houses.
Okay.
That was just the beginning with the
See,
idea.
but that's what's different about you. Most people get into fixing, flipping houses because they see it on TV and it looks cool,
Yeah.
right? It's a means to an end for you, just like same thing with me.
Right.
Why did I get into real estate? Is to accumulate wealth to buy real estate.
Right, exactly. So that was the goal. So what I did was I started to take the profits from the fix and flip and started to buy single family houses on the island as rentals. So I did that, and I got all the way up to 11 doors. And for anybody that's not in the island, 11 doors is not, it's a good amount of doors to have.
Yeah.
However, when the pandemic hit and the politicians were telling people don't pay rent, don't worry about it, stay in the house. Well, 11 doors is not quite enough where you could take a hit on 3 or 4 squatters, right? So when you have debt on them and all of that. So it started to be, I was running an entire portfolio to make no money or lose a couple grand every month once half the people stopped paying.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good in the beginning. It was good until it wasn't, right?
Yep.
So then I started to realize, okay, New York is it's so tenant friendly and so unfair to the landlords that just the model itself just did not make any more sense to me. So I sold out of all those after the pandemic, and now we're in this position where we have all this capital sitting. What are we going to do with it? Well, still going into real estate one way or another. And then that's when, me and you came up with the idea, hey, let's get together. Let's start a PE fund. I have all the background, the knowledge on how to structure it, everything about it. And, let's get it going. Let's put this money to work.
Absolutely. And put our money, right, as the inside players next to our friends and inner circles money. Yep. And let's grow it together.
Yeah.
It's no fun to make money alone.
No. It's better if you can make everybody else around you,
How are you managing the renovations? Talk to me. So you told everyone, and you were candid that you can't, you would hurt yourself if you swung a hammer. So did you have your own in-house crews? Did you sub it out? Like, what did you learn? How does that work?
So lots of learning involved. Lots of learning. So in order to keep the costs as low as possible on the renovation side, I was building relationships with all different subs and managing the projects myself, right? So, however, that comes with a lot of individual headaches. Now, you're dealing with a lot of contractors, and you're trying to get the contracting work done at a really good number. So the type of people that you're dealing with aren't the easiest. They're not the most reliable, right? They're kind of just a different type of character than, say, the people I was dealing with when I was auditing hedge funds.
Sure, absolutely.
So so I did that for a few years, had a project manager. I ended up hiring a project manager to manage these guys who didn't work out as well, because I had to manage the project manager who wasn't really managing to get the subs, and it was just a disaster, right? Every job would take too long. It would go over budget. It was just, in every which way renovations could go wrong, I've seen them go wrong, over the course of hundreds of houses. So
what I picture is if you've seen the movie The Money Pit, where they buy this house and they're in the bathtub and the bathtub falls down to the first floor. That's what I picture when
I mean it's really it's not an easy game to get involved with on the fix and flip side. So what I did was, it took years. It took years of building relationships with the right people to put the right people in the right place so that you can get it to a point where it's like a well-oiled machine where you can actually scale. So we started off handful of houses a year, then got into the teens, 20s, and now we're in the 30s per year. and it's actually less work for me than it was 5 years ago when I
Mhm.
was doing 10 houses.
Right.
You know, just because I have all the systems in place, I have all the people in the right spots, and I have guys that I've built good relationships with that I could trust that are going to do things, and they're professionals. So it's taken a lot of time to get it up to where it's at now, but it allows me extra time now to kind of dive into this venture.
What talk to me about how are you financing these? Are you do you have daddy Warbucks? Do you have is there a money tree in the backyard? Like, how are you buying all these houses?
When you have 20-something projects going on at
Yeah.
one time, you got to have a creative way of leveraging them and financing them.
So what does that look like?
In a way that makes sense, right? So I have a few different ways that I finance properties. I have private investors, right, that lend me capital on almost like a line of credit basis, where they'll say, I'll give you 100, 200, 300,000, put it to work, and then whatever project that their capital goes into, when it's getting close to the end, do you want to roll into the next one? Do you want your capital back? And that's kind of like a repetitive thing that I do on a monthly basis with all the investors.
Was that hard to get, or people, you just went through your phone and called all your wealthy friends?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of wealthy friends, unfortunately. But no, this is just another thing of meeting people, right? Talking to people and trying to get people invested that want to be part of it as well, but they have their lives, their own businesses and all that. So they enjoy being part of the game, and they get to see everything, and they're updated on their individual projects on a regular basis. So it's a mixture of private capital, hard money, and reinvested funds from the profits.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you know when to pull capital out of it? Like, you're using hard money, you're using private capital. When are you able to say, okay, great, here's some profit that I can dump into? You were talking about the Tennessee syndication or buying real estate. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a balancing game, and it's just the amount of deals coming in, the amount that are going out, and it's trying to time. And every single day, it's just a balance act. This is such a capital-intensive business that holding on to money is something I feel uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like to have too much money in there because it's not making any money. It's not doing it. It's not working for me.
Yeah, I told you this story of my buddy who had $1 million in cash, and I almost fell over the table. Not because I was impressed, because obviously he did well in business. I was like, that money's not making money?
Especially in times when you have inflation.
Yeah, it's got to be out on the street.
You're losing money.
It's got to be out on the street.
So, yeah, no, I never like to. And for the same thing from a psychology standpoint, if you have all your money sitting in an account, you're going to go spend it. Right. So what's the big deal? It's 20 grand. Oh, it's 30 grand. Oh, it's not a big deal. Well, if you only have a certain amount in there, it's a bigger deal spending it. So you may as well go
broke.
Just keep dumping it in, man.
I always said I want to know that my soldiers are out there working harder than me, and I want my soldiers going out to battle and coming home with more soldiers.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about new construction, because it's a shiny object in the fix and flip world, and I hear a lot of fix and flippers saying, one day I want to move up to new construction. I know, and I use the word dabble loosely, because dabble sounds like you didn't know what you're doing. I think you actually crushed it, but then you also pivoted away from it. So kind of talk to me about that.
Yeah, so new construction is just something that on the island itself, and I'm sure in a lot of different places where they have a lot of red tape, but it's a whole nother animal, right? Like, there's the fixing and flipping, and then going into new construction are just two different animals. There's a lot more involved with the new construction. It's a whole different mindset, because you're not, on the fix and flips, I could get in and out of a house in 6 weeks. I could do a full reno in 4 or 5 weeks, and then, be in and out within 2 to 3 months tops from soup to nuts. New construction is just, you got to get the land. If you can find the land at the right number, right? Everybody thinks their land is worth 3-4 times of what it is, because there's so few pieces available.
I feel that way in multifamily. Everyone thinks their apartment complex is worth a fortune.
It's insane. It's just, I don't know where they come up with it, and that's always how did you get that valuation? How did you think that piece of land is worth that much? What do you? So the biggest thing with new construction is you have to have time, you have to have patience, you have to have expedite. When it comes to the laws and getting permits, it's a multi-year process. In some, if you're doing a subdivision like the one that we're doing, what are we on? Over 2.5 years.
Over 2.5 years.
We still don't have our permits.
I want to say it's almost 3 years.
Yeah.
I think you convinced me to partner with you on that pre-COVID. I'm trying to think where I was.
No, it was right after. It'll be 3 years this upcoming July. It's 2.5 years.
Wow, it's crazy. And
we still don't have the permits.
Still don't have the permits. And this is something that is a huge compliment to you. Maybe makes me look foolish, but I was not the most versed. Like I'm more knowledgeable than the average person about land and land division and stuff like that. But I think this is big for people to understand is sometimes like you have to, I think I heard this from my brother, because I was asking him like, how does your hedge fund deploy all this capital and like understand like they deploy it over here in different markets in different sectors. And I'm like, how do you guys do that? He's like, we don't even get into that sector or that market. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we just do a deep dive into the person who is managing it.
Yeah.
And if we think that they know
right.
what they're doing, then we go all in on it. And that's what I did with the land. I was like, well, Anthony's telling me 2 lots we lose money, 3 lots we make money, 4 lots we hit a home run.
Right.
I was like, well, like his track record with all this land, like he's really doing some, like he knows his shit. So I was like, all right, well, I don't really know what's going on over here. And I don't know who he says is going to get it done for us. But I'm like, I'm betting on him, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I looked at that deal because it wasn't like I had 6 months to do due diligence. You're like, dude, do you want to partner with me on this? Yeah. I need $350,000 yesterday. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, and that.
So it's a compliment to you.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, we got 4 lots on that, by the way.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, doing the ground up, you have to have, there are so many different departments, right? You're dealing with the health department, you're dealing with the towns, the building departments, all of that. So and you need a different kind of set of contractors as well, right? You need foundation guys that know what they're doing. You need real framing companies. You need, because you're going from the ground up. Yeah. You're not slapping up a wall or anything like that or tearing a wall down.
And I feel like the town's watching you.
I mean, the inspections and this and that, it's just a whole different game that you're playing, and there's just a lot more moving pieces. And and then you have that macroeconomic risk as well, right? Because if you're purchasing if you're purchasing a piece of land, you have to then try to predict where the market's going to be in 2 to 3 years, right? Yep. And if you can't, which nobody can, right? You have to have a margin big enough to make sure that if it doesn't do what the expectation is, that you're not going to lose your shirt. So now you could pay even less because you have so much more inherent risk. And now you're trying to buy things that not only are they not worth, people don't know what they're worth today, trying to predict what it'd be worth in 2 years, it makes it very difficult to put the deals together.
Yeah. I think, why don't you tell people, because now you're out of new construction, I feel like everyone thinks every builder is making $500,000 on every house.
Oh, God. No.
Right? Like, what's the margin on that?
Yeah, the margins are tight. I mean, the builders that I dealt with, they wouldn't touch anything unless they were going to make $150,000 on a house. Yeah. Like just simplicity. But again, now think about it. If you're going into a house that you're going to do new construction, you're going to sell it for $1.1 million. Well, you might see a $1.1 million house go for $950. Yeah. Right. And now you're losing.
Yeah. So now you did it for practice.
Yeah. Exactly. Right? I mean, so I've done. I've probably done. Maybe half a dozen new constructions from the ground up. Some worked out really well, but I lost money on others too. Yeah. Like it was just too much time, too much. That's it. It's the time, and you're getting eaten alive by interest, and it's just a whole different game. And not for me.
Mm-hmm. If you were to do it all over again, what would you have done differently, and what different moves would you have made? Like I said candidly, I would have gone into more debt when debt was free and cheap.
Right. I would have in the beginning. So what I think definitely a mistake that I made was not putting enough money, reinvesting it into the business, and trying to start that rental portfolio too soon. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of strapping the business, right? I was putting a chokehold on the business because I was robbing it of all of its cash and putting it into rentals too soon. Yeah. Instead of building the business, right? Getting that marketing budget up to where it is
Death
now.
Star. I always say it's a Death Star. Yeah. Right? It's a marketing Death Star.
I was so eager to get rentals that I didn't realize I was kind of choking the business itself. So building the business up would have been done a lot quicker and easier had I taken that money and reinvested it into the business, and I would have gotten to a point where it would have made so much better of a return that then I could have in a quicker time span, I could have used that extra money to go put it into big syndication.
Yeah.
But again, it's crystal. Everything's hindsight, right?
Yeah, everything's hindsight's 2020.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't know what you don't know. So, another thing I'd probably do truly is try to seek out somebody that's in a position where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years, and kind of just grab their ear as much as you can instead of trying to figure it all out on your own and all of that.
Dude,
it's not fun.
We share that in common. Sometimes in my darker moments, I'm like, where the fuck's my mentor? Right?
Seriously.
Like, everyone's calling me up. Everyone's calling me up and like, dude, will you mentor me?
Yeah.
Can you help me out? Like, tell me what you did. And I'm very candid. I'll tell everyone exactly what I did. I've done it on every time I speak to people. Yeah. But sometimes I'm like,
who am I calling?
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Hello? Like, right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
I had to figure this out on my own.
Yeah, 100%. But, if that's why anybody that calls now and reaches out, I really do try to help them and point them in the right direction and say, no, don't. I had somebody call me the other day and I got this property, I said, you have it locked up? He's like, no, but I can get it at this number. I said, so hold on.
Yeah.
So you're trying to sell me a house that you don't own. You don't own the contract to it or anything like that. I go, listen, I am going to tell you very, very politely and nicely, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't go out and try to sell something you don't own. You're going to put a really bad stain on your name right out of the gate, and it's not going to work out well for you. Go lock up a deal.
Yeah.
Then come talk to me. Don't do that.
Yeah, you're an honest person, but some guys would just go around them and go right for the deal.
And I said that.
Yeah.
I said that exact thing. I said, I am not going to do this to you, but somebody might.
Yeah.
So be careful who you're telling is trying to sell their house for cash because you don't have the cash and you want to try to make a buck or two.
I'm all about people making a buck. But
Me too. But lock it up first, man, because you tell the wrong person. I said, you already gave me the address.
Yeah.
I could have the homeowner's social security number in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them and I'm going to go, and give them a real offer with real money in hand.
Remember that deal that one of the neighbors, and we'll leave the block out of here. One of the neighbors was a cul-de-sac, said, oh, my neighbor's house just burned down. And I was talking to him and he wants to sell it for cash. I was like, all right, roger that. Hung up the phone.
Yep.
Yo, Aunt, boop, 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 boop. And we locked it up and then wholesaled it and moved it on.
You got to be careful.
Yeah. But this guy was not, listen, the way I looked at it is
he wasn't buying it.
He wasn't buying it.
No.
He wasn't buying it.
He wasn't buying it. He wasn't trying to get into the game or anything like that.
No. He was just like, he's like, the neighbor wants to buy it for cash. Listen,
so do I.
So do I. Someone's always listening.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Talk to me quickly, because we're running out of time. Everyone listening to this thinks that obviously you just you come from an affluent family that must have been in real estate. Like, how did you like start? Like, not even start because we spoke about that, but like, what made you like realize? Okay, how do you even go to Hofstra? Because I know where I know like how do you even say I'm gonna decide to go to college, get my master's, go to Hofstra, and then just tell people how that even happens because some people can't even get out of their own way. And they're sitting there feeling sorry because that they don't have a full scholarship to go to Harvard or something.
Yeah. Well, I started off in community school, so I knew I wanted to. Pretty much, I knew I wanted to be in business in one way or another. So I went to community college. I was able to get I was on financial aid. I got into community school, so I didn't come out of pocket for anything. And then I got an academic scholarship to Hofstra. So, I came out of Hofstra with a degree in accounting. And again, this is 2008. So, Hofstra has an amazing career center too. And so there, I was in business. I didn't know what I was majoring in until 2007. So the year before, or 2 years before I graduated. And it was what jobs are going to be available. What business jobs are never going to die, and it's accounting.
Yep.
Accounting is always, and if anything, what 2008 did with the Frank Dodd Act and all that, it actually made more of a demand for accountants because they increased the amount of disclosures and things that needed to go on financial statements. So, I went to Hofstra. I got student loans and financial scholarship, and went right into accounting from there.
So you realized that education was your way to get into the, like you even said it, to get into the boardroom, to get into the office, to get into the next level.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I love it. This has been an incredible episode of the Brick by Brick podcast where I had the pleasure of interviewing my co-host, Anthony Loffredo. If you guys like this show, give it a thumbs up, comment. If you don't like it, give us a thumbs down and comment. Share it with someone you guys know. Help us spread the word of financial freedom and passive income. And most importantly, if you've thought about investing in real estate, the best time to invest in real estate was yesterday. And if you're saying to yourself, I've always wanted to do it, Bryan and Anthony, but I don't have the time to find the deals. I don't have the knowledge. I'm so busy, but I wish I could. Give us a call. We are syndicating. We are open for new capital. Park your money with our money, right? Become an inside player next to us. The only true way to have passive income, which is really passive, is to park it in a syndication like ours. See you on the next episode.